Hello, friends. This is Dolores Williams of DW's View Stand Up. If we do not stand up for what we believe, who will? This is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. My sponsor helps keep this podcast on the air. And my sponsor is my peak performance coach, my friend, Kim Yater. And if you're stuck in any part of your life, and you just can't move forward, whether in a personal or professional level, then you need to contact my coach, Kim Yater. And you can request a complimentary strategy session with Kim at Calendly, CALENDLY/Kim Yater. Now, today I want to introduce a special friend, someone we've known for a few years. And his name is Mr. Craig Candelore. I'll tell you a little bit about Craig. Craig is a founding attorney at the Men's Legal Center here in San Diego. He earned his Juris Doctorate degree from the University of San Diego Law School. He is a certified family law specialist. He deployed active duty overseas during Operation Desert Storm. He is a military man. And Craig also served as a translator of the United Nations. I want to hear a little bit more about that, Craig. Now, audience and friends, please help me welcome Mr. Craig Candelore. Hey, Craig, how are you?
Good, thank you for having me.
Yes, good to see you today. Now, I want to ask you, but first, let me thank you for your military service.
Thank you. By the way, thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm looking forward to talking to you today. Now, Craig, you started the Men's Law Center in 1986. What in the world caused you to do that? Why did you do that?
Well, it's a very good question. I just felt a calling. I was working for the Women's Legal Center for a year. So I got out of law school and I wanted to find my path. And I worked for a year for the Women's Legal Center. And I found out that, it's not let's say the narrative that I had heard. I found out that men were being cut out of the custodial relationship with their children, even after divorce. And it was a little disconcerting. And it's funny, a lot of people just didn't see that. And I said, you know what, let me go into it. It was very controversial then, even 30 years ago. People feel like, you're the fly in the ointment. But all the studies that I saw said, no, fathers, in fact, even at a very young age, need to be part of the child's life. It took two to tango. And so, but the system basically is somewhat anti-male. I'll just tell you, men have to apply for custody. So it was really egregious. And I actually made an attempt to actually change the law, and there's no political will, but that's just the Reader's Digest. So I said, you know what, let me do the right thing. I felt a calling to do it, and that's what I did.
Oh, okay, great. Now, I see in your bio that you like to write books. Have you published any books?
Well, very interesting. I actually have 4 books that are being beta tested, and it's interesting. I have 3 books on the women warriors of antiquity, and so they wanted to publish them in sequence. And so I had some, truthful feedback. They said, look, you have a great research paper, but it's not a very easy read for the layman. And so about a month ago, when I thought we were going to be actually pulling the trigger on book 1, which is called The Libyan Amazons and the Conquest of Continents, they said, you got to rewrite it. You just have to rewrite it for the layman. So 20 years of research overnight, I said, look, just put it in, change the optics. By the way, fascinating story. When the books are published, I believe I will be the leading world expert in this very narrow line of history, which has not gotten its just dues. It really hasn't. And it's very interesting. I mean, I could go off and talk to you only about Amazons, because I've read, I think, every field report, every author on this line of work. And it's so funny because it happened 30 years ago. I was talking to my sister-in-law. I blame it all on her. She says, well, why don't you make a case for the Amazons? You ladies and gentlemen of the jury, sit back. Let me tell you why the Amazons existed. And 30 years later, 3 books. And so it's actually, that is a fascinating topic. I could go off And so we're rewriting book one, hopefully should be done within a few months, and we'll pull the trigger.
Yes, that's great. Yeah, you gotta let us, keep us informed about that.
That is worth an interview in and of itself. It is, you cannot make it up.
Oh, okay.
Dolores, reality is stranger than fiction. Just so you know, the key author is a gentleman called Diodorus of Sicily. And he's writing an antiquity. And of course, Libyan Amazon, as I call them, Libyan Amazon, were way, we're talking probably to 2200 BC. And so you have these women that are literally, as we say, kicking booty and taking names, and they're not in history. They're not recorded. And you say, how is this possible? And what they did is just so amazing. It's worth basically telling.
Oh, okay. So you're telling it. And so you have to come back here and tell it again.
And it brings in Atlantean cities. I mean, you can't make this up.
Wow.
Anyways, on another topic.
Yeah, that's great. Now your law center covers everything from divorce, paternity, legal separation, spousal support, child custody, visitation, domestic violence, and et cetera, and et cetera. Now, why is it important that dads have legal representation?
There's twofold. So first of all, we do family law, and that's kind of encompasses, all these different issues. There's some crossover, we're basically family law. Here's the thing, the system has gotten very complex. I kind of joke when I have clients when they're signing a 15-page retainer. 20 years ago, everything was probably very simple. Now they have more laws, you have to dot the I's, cross the T's, and it's easy to make a mistake. Dolores, is very easy to make a mistake, and people don't quite understand. They say, well, here's what I jokingly say. I have people that like, the standard one is I have like a person who wires, he does electricity. He's a journeyman, and he's an electrician. And I said, well, how long have you been doing this? He says, well, 20 years. I always ask, as an electrician, have you learned anything in 20 years? He says, of course. Would you want me to wire your house? I know nothing. I know you flip the switch, and now there's what are those boxes that you push, if things go out. And I said, I'm not stupid. I actually have a civil engineer. Do you want me to do your house? He says, no, I get it. I said, well, that's the same thing. They made it so complex. You really need an attorney irrespective. Now, why men should is because the system is not totally leveled. And unfortunately, there's a bias, whether you like it or not. Small kids go to mom, dad gets cut out, have him pay child support and see the kids, whenever we can squeeze them in. And it's not healthy, it's not smart. Smart women know that you want the dad involved. If you want healthy kids, you keep the father involved. But, people are angry, they're resentful, they want to use the kids as pawn, and there's a cost. You want to play that game, your kids will be in therapy for the rest of their life.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you're doing that, because I know people who've had children, and for whatever reason, and I've seen some good men who wanted to be involved in their children's lives, and the mom said no, for whatever reason, just flat out mean, and just cut out the dad, and the dad had nothing to say, but he had to pay child support, but he couldn't see his kids. And,
well, I will tell you, there's a little bit of how should I call it? It's counterintuitive. The way they have the law set up is timeshare affects child support. So the more timeshare you have, the less child support. Well, people are incentivized to fight. Do you understand? And that's the problem. A few years ago, I went up to Sacramento to see if we could have a presumption of 50-50. And there's no political will. And here's what happens. In marriages, people make decisions, Dolores. They divide up the duties during marriage. Mom's going to be the nurturer, dad's going to be the provider. Well, when you get a divorce, that's a change of circumstance in and of itself. Dad's got to become more of a nurturer, mom's got to become a provider. But they keep these stereotypes, you understand? And the problem is that what the decisions the parties made during marriage is not necessarily what should happen after divorce. You have to rearrange your priorities. But the court says, no, for stability and continuity, we're going to keep the way we divide the duties, and that's not fair. And that's not fair. So
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm just glad you're there. Now, I want to ask you this. Now, I love the ideal that you have of the Great Dad Award, where you honor outstanding fathers, great mentors, and excellent role models for the community who go the extra mile for their kids. How in the world did this program come about? Just a great idea.
you want to reinforce the positive. Listen, everybody on the media, they're tearing people down. We have some outstanding men out there that really set the example for children and, for the community. They're coaching Little League. They're actually phenomenal men. Well, instead of denigrating everybody else, let's promote, let's spotlight, let's showcase people that have tremendous track records. A lot of times they come that way because, of course, they have their own custody battles. You know what I mean? But a lot of them just do it like they're coaching, or Little League or boxing or stuff like that. So it's very interesting, and we want to showcase them. And so, by the way, if anybody has somebody that they want to promote, that bring it to our attention, and we will actually, if they meet the criteria, we'll showcase them. We have an award, actually several $100s, and we have them interviewed by the media. And we want to promote, it's like, spotlight the positive. Don't tell me the negative, spotlight the positive. Show me there's some phenomenal men out there, and they deserve to be recognized.
Oh, that's wonderful. I agree with you. I totally agree with you. And the next thing I want to read this statement because I just love the statement that you had in your bio. You made the statement that as a society, we cannot underestimate the importance of a father actively involved in the lives of his children. Research shows that the dad effect begins shortly after birth. Amazing that children with involved fathers are more emotionally secure and have more confidence, higher IQs, and show more self-direction than their peers who do not have actively involved fathers. Now, would you attribute the no bail for criminals and the lack of involvement of fathers with the crime that's running rampant across our country today?
Well, two different questions. But let me first answer the one that I think is actually important. They've done studies that children recognize fathers basically within a few days of birth. They know it's the other. So no, they know mommy, but
Okay.
they recognize the father, the other person in their life from sound.
Okay.
They have done studies that if fathers stay involved, the child are have less psychological problems, less medical problems, are more directed. And the corollary, or let me say on the positive, they turn out better, make more money. It's just there's a tremendous amount of positives. And society has not totally acknowledged that. What you see is the negative. Let me give you and I use the 70% rule. 70% of people in juvenile court come from a fatherless background. Drug addiction, 70% didn't have a father. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. Mortality, suicide. I use 70, but sometimes it's like 65, sometimes it's 80, but the 70% is probably a pretty good average. For every category where people are not doing well, suicide, dropouts, teenage pregnancies, there's no father. So, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize that there's some factor, even if you're not a scientist, you can actually correlate the data. And you're not going to get rid of the gangs until you actually bring fathers back into the family. Or at least that you maintain the relationship with children. It's not rocket science. It's actually common sense.
Yeah, totally agree with that. Totally agree with that. Yeah. Fathers have to be part of the family. And whether they're married or not, the dad needs to be there for the sake of his children.
And the other thing, it's very interesting. We represent women. About 20% of our clients are women. And one of the things I say is, look, even mom need a break. And so it's interesting. Yep. One of my clients, I had a female client and she says, Craig, it's not just even the money. I need a break. I come home from work and kids want attention and I'm exhausted. It's nice sometimes, I don't want to say pawn off, but it's nice to have the other parent take care of them for a weekend so I get a break,
Yeah.
and I know it sounds funny, but he said, no, it's not just money. Working moms, they're tired. They get a break, give it to the other parent, especially if the parent's, adequate.
Yeah. Yep. That's wonderful. That's why the family structure is how God made it, for the family to be together. And
Totally agree.
the dad is supposed to lead the family. That's just the way God structured it. Now we look at the, and the reason I asked you about this next question about spending is because it will affect families. With our government spending millions of dollars, I wanted to ask you about that because that kind of ties in with how families make it, and how they're going to be affected by what happens with the amount of money that they have. And I don't mean for handouts or anything, but actually being able to take care of their family, take care and support their families, and not depend on handouts to where they can actually support their families themselves. And it's so important that families are stable, where they can, where dad and mom, if they both have to work, where they can work together and support that family. And that's why I think, when I look at inflation, I look at the price of gas and all these things, which will impact people driving to work, just having to spend a lot more money for those groceries and those kind of things. And you just comment on that.
That's actually a very good question, Dolores. And I think it's sad because when you debase your currency, there's historically, they found out that causes hyperinflation. It's not always obvious, but the end effect it is. And you had the Weimar Republic. I don't want to go into it, where the money's worthless. You've had a bunch of countries in Latin America or even in Africa that have done that, and it's runaway inflation. And unfortunately, when you're printing money, it's basically you have dollars chasing too few goods, which causes the price to go up. And it's sad. That means also that the saver, the person who saves, actually is disenfranchised because your money is actually being devaluated. I've heard some statistics that are pretty sobering, between 15 and 25%. That means that theoretically, if you had $1 today, within 4 years, it has gone down basically 100%. So every year it's going down. And of course, rounding off, it's going down, let's say 20%. It's first year, so your dollar buys only 80% of what it bought before. Then you have another 20%. And so what it causes is hyperinflation, and that's not good. Now, both Republicans and Democrats have done this. There's been no fiscal responsibility. Most people don't quite understand what that means. I truly believe that it's I hate to use the word troubling. I think probably it's so commonsensical. It's so common sense that you cannot print money. There's a cost. And here's the way I look at it. In a family unit, do you at some point you max out your credit cards, right? Your lenders say, we're not going to lend you money. Well, the government doesn't have those constraints. Nobody says, government, you cannot print money. You can't do it. Nobody says, bad, bad, bad. The only way is the universe is going to punish you for going to the printing press and allowing people to just print money with no backing. Bretton Woods, when we got off the gold standard, now it's just in God we trust. So the government can do whatever it wants, but there is a day of reckoning. Unfortunately, it's the main thing is look at a family. Can you spend in a family? Can you spend whatever you want? Of course you can't. You max out your credit cards. You can't get loans. Your credit rating goes down. It's simple, but the best thing that you look at a family and how would you run your financial affairs if you were running your household, and you should have that fiscal responsibility. Now, we haven't rewarded our elected officials. That's what's interesting. We allow elected officials to do whatever they want. We're not holding them accountable. You have to be a fiscal conservative. You cannot overspend you can't spend more than you make. I know it seems like, well, that's obvious. Well, the government is doing the exact opposite. And there is a cost. There will be a day of reckoning. And, God help us how that plays out.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree with you, Craig, because it's okay to spend other people's money.
Absolutely. Well, the government, they don't understand. And yet at some point they will look in the mirror and say, God, we brought the apocalypse on us.
Yep. It's like, they should know just by, look at history. It's not like it's not known. It's like you don't care. That's kind of how I look at it.
Well,
Now,
they have to, and you just have to be smart. I
yeah,
think there's ways that we could save money, but nobody's incentivized. What they're doing is they're kicking the can down the road. And they're saying, well, let the next Congress deal with it. Let's the next Senate deal with it. Let's the next president. Well, the problem is it's now. And we need
yeah,
because what's going to happen is we already see hyperinflation. I remember when a burger was $1. Now it's $8, $10. So it's terrible.
oh yeah, yeah. So it's hitting people in their pocketbooks, and it's only going to get worse. July 1st, in the state of California, our gas is going to go up more because they have an automatic increase in gas taxes on July 1st. It's automatic. So families will pay more, even
Well,
than they are
and
now.
that's actually indirect taxation, whether you like it or not. It's really an indirect tax.
Yeah.
But people need to wake up and say, look, I will vote in people that have conservative fiscal values. Unfortunately, they bought in on a lot of rhetoric, gender identity or whatever, identity politics. The problem is that, you cannot spend more than you make, and you can borrow, but at some point the creditor wants his money.
That's right. Got to pay. Yeah. Let me ask you this, Craig. Now, as a certified family law specialist and a professional mediator, you're trained by the National Conflict Resolution Center. How involved do you get in mediation?
Well, it's a very, very good, that's a very good question. I'm glad I'm trained. Unfortunately, a lot of times people that come to me, they've already made the decision to kind of, they're a little bit more litigious. What I do try to solve is I try to resolve it quickly up front. So what I always tell everybody, look, in fact, I was just on the phone with a potential client who's coming in. I said, look, if you're smart, you put a package together up front. You try to settle it up front. You don't, you try to stay out as much as possible of the system. So yeah, it's a little more work up front, but try to resolve it, send a settlement downrange quickly. And so I use my mediation skills that way to try to help people through the process. My job is to try to get people through from point A to point B in one piece and quickly and easily. So that's my focus. And so I try to bring some sanity and rationality to, the discourse, because, when you have irreconcilable differences, emotions, what is it? As emotions go up, intelligence goes down. People are reacting, and they do a lot of things that later on they're ashamed of.
Yeah, that's so true. And you can't recall it.
I jokingly sometimes, if you use a nuclear bomb, you can't scrape up the radioactivity. And some people do this. How dare he, how dare she, or whatever. And okay, be smart. Just be smart, and do it with dignity.
Yeah, so true. That is so true. I see why you have a lot of clients. You got good comments too on your website.
Well, we do. I believe we do tremendous, great, terrific service to people, and it's from the heart. I could be doing something else. I'm a trained engineer at your taxpayer expense. I was a UN translator, so I've done a lot of other things. I feel like this is a calling, and we do try to give quality service to clients in a very difficult environment. Listen, people come to us distraught, and sometimes it's terrible what they've gone through. So, we try to get them through the system. When they look back, I think they will say we did a great job. And we get comments like that. People say they're so thankful they found us.
Yeah, well, that's wonderful. Now, I want to ask you this. Now, you served in the military and you reached the rank of a colonel from the United States Army. What made you go in the military?
Well, I'm first of all, very patriotic. This is a great country. People don't always understand the blessings that we are given. If my dad was State Department, so I've kind of seen other countries, and we really have we have a tremendous, really a very unusual country. Now, it's unique because it's the land of opportunity. You can come here and nothing, and be whatever you want to be.
Yeah.
In other countries, if your dad's a baker, you're a baker. You know, you have very little upward mobility. And people don't quite understand it. Even in Europe, it's a very structured society. Very, very, very structured. Now, the problem, of course, with people here is that, you know, you have freedom. That means freedom to fail. You know, there's no guarantee. There's, what is it? Guaranteed opportunities, but no guaranteed results. And so it's a little scary. But if you're willing to put in hard work, this is it. I always jokingly say when I'm talking, I said, you know, there are more first generation millionaires here in America. They come here, I jokingly say, they live in the back room with the whole family. They ultimately buy the building, their son goes to Harvard. And so there are more millionaires here in the United States. That's why people want to come here. So, you know, when you poo-poo the country, really think through this one. And so I'm very patriotic. Also, remember, I got the blessings because my dad was a senior diplomat, so I'm not stupid. I really realized that I had a privileged upbringing, and I wanted to give back. So,
Amen. Well, good. That's wonderful that you did that. Now, how long did you serve? I know you said you served in Operation Desert Storm and Iraqi Freedom. How long were you stationed over in that area?
Very good question. Well, just to kind of retrace a little bit, I did 5 years active duty. I owed from West Point, I owed 5 years active duty. And then I got out and stayed in the reserves. And by the way, that was one of the best decisions. I had an absolute blast. The things you get to do in the military, you never do in civilian world. And I did what I call Desert Storm 1 and then Desert Storm 2. This last one was just absolutely terrific with Simon. I was ended up being in charge of police development. So my counterpart was the Iraqi police chief for Iraq. And tremendous, actually a phenomenal experience. I could go on and on and on. It's just unbelievable experience. So the way I like to explain it is in the military, they want a generalist. They want somebody who, because we don't know what type of problem you're going to be faced. You know, every day is a new assignment. Where in the civilian world, people want a specialist. I'm a certified family specialist, which means you know more and more about less and less. You know, you have a very narrow beam. Where in the military, I mean, they sent me to school for, in fact, I was in charge of anti-terrorism force protection. I jokingly said they sent me for basket weaving. I was a combat life medic. I mean, if it's Tuesday, they're sending you to school. So what a ride. And I would tell anybody, if you can put up with it, because it's not for everybody, what a ride. You won't regret it.
Yeah, that's great. Now, I know you mentioned that you were a translator. Who did you translate for? It was with the United Nations.
Well, let me tell you, very interesting. I'm actually, my DNA is I'm a linguist, but I don't really have any credits in the sense my dad was State Department. He was a linguist, spoke many, many languages. He was quite a credit to the State Department. Because I was brought up with a linguist, I'm somewhat of a linguist. My languages are French and German. And when I was 16, I had an opportunity to work in Geneva, Switzerland, which, by the way, it's a beautiful city. And I did simultaneous. There was a conference on the peaceful uses of the atom, and I was the translator for this, for the Americans on translating, simultaneously from French, English, French, French, German, English. I mean, so that's the three languages. And it's absolutely fascinating. I did it for a summer. What a ride that was too. So it was just fantastic, just fantastic.
Yeah, well, that's great. That is wonderful. Now, I want to ask you one last question. Now, you sponsored a group, the South Bay Conservatives. Will you tell us about that group and what you do and what you hope to accomplish, what your mission is for that group?
Well, we put labels, Democrat, Republican, and what we found that it's probably easier to have a label conservative. We believe in conservative. I believe in conservative values, fiscal conservative, basics. I talk, family, support the family, certain things that I think are really, really important. And so we've gone out and created a group called the South Bay Community Conservatives, because I'm actually in the 80th Assembly District. And we meet the first Thursday of the month, and we also meet the third Wednesday. And first Thursday is the political meeting. I manage the third Wednesday, And basically, it's a discussion group where we have what I call 25 articles of faith, but basically what we stand for, like, balanced budget, like that's a novel concept, supporting the family, stuff that seems so obvious, but, in our day and age, nothing's obvious. I always laugh when people say, well, we're going to try something new. Listen, there's the tried and true, you know what I mean? It's like, listen, you're not going to get any better. There's the family unit. You have to balance your budget. You really want a fairly strong military. It makes sense. There's stuff that it's just commonsensical. Well, if you don't promote that and explain it to people why you want to vote and act accordingly, well, then shame on us. So what we're out there is we have a great time. We generally, right now, we have about 30 people attending. We provide like pizza, wings. Listen, if you just want to come for the pizza, the wings, you should come. It's great. And it's a great discussion. And we take one topic out of the 25 and we just expand on it. So we have a couple of videos, we have round robin. We showcase a conservative, somebody who's running a business and who's a conservative. And so I think it's the best program, it's like you, it's the best program in South Bay.
Well, wonderful, wonderful. Well, you know what, Craig, this has just been a wonderful discussion with you, and I'm so happy I finally got you on here.
If you want excitement, you want to bring me back on for the Amazons, because it is listen, Dolores, I'm not just this thing. What a story. There was a lady called Marina who conquered all of North Africa, but it's not in the textbooks.
Wow.
You say, and then one of the things I said, oh, this can't be true. Famous slides where it's not. No, let me see. I'm trying to disprove it, and in fact, I prove it. Does that make sense? This can't be true. Does that make sense? And then you find out that no, it passes the smell test. Check, 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 check. And so what a story. There's the wave 1, wave 2, wave 3. So there's basically 2200 BC, 1450 BC, and about 750. And they have these women warriors that literally existed and impacted history, and their story needs to be told.
Yeah, okay. Well, you're going to have to tell me when you're ready. I will. Yes, just let me know. Now, I want you to share with my audience how they can contact you or what final words you want to say. Go ahead and share.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for having me. We are family law, and if we can help you, we help families through the family law process. I'm at Men's Legal Center. Again, there's nothing. We have 20% women that we represent. And we really basically want somewhat gender equality, equal access in the court system, and equal, good representation, so both parties get quality timeshare with their children. I'm Men's Legal Center. I am at the intersection of 10th and C. We do great work for people, and I think we're going to do a good job if you come to us. And we just look up Men's Legal. Just Google us, Men's Legal. You'll find us, 10th and C. We'll do a good job for you if you need us.
All right.
Oh, by the way, telephone number is 619-234-3838. 619-234-3838. Give us a call if you need us.
All right. Wonderful, Craig.
One last thing. We have produced free videos on YouTube. They're called Untying the Knot. It's called utkdivorce.com. They're free. They're 5 to 7 minute videos, and they'll sell you tons of money because they take key concepts and they explain it to the layman. And I'll tell you, bar none, it's the best thing I've ever done.
Oh, okay. You say it's called Untying the Knot?
It's called utkdivorce.com. utkdivorce.com. You go online, it's on YouTube, and our office produced it, and it'll save them tons of money and answer most of their questions.
Okay, wonderful. That's great information for people to have. You know what? Why don't you write that out and send it to me so I can include it in writing in here?
No problem. Take care of that. Thank you, Dolores.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Craig. I really appreciate it. Now I want to thank my audience for coming each week and listen to my podcast and share them with your friends. Also, become a sponsor to DW's View. Stand up. Guess what? I have a challenge for all of you. Stand up. And stand up for what you believe. Stand up for this great country. I'm not ashamed to say I love America. I'm not ashamed of it. proud to stand for the United States of America. There's no place like it. And because guess what? If we do not stand up for what we believe, friends, who will?